And we are with the Southern Arizona Museum of Science and Technology in Sierra Vista. And the reason that we founded the museum is that there is a real need for people to understand the natural history of Cochise County. These two ranchers were going up Charleston Road, and they were walking along the road, and they spotted some fossils. And the fossils turned out to be some really, really cool fossils of prehistoric horses. The horses belonged to a species that is not known today. It's called Equus scotti. But because this area didn't have a natural history museum, the fossils ended up in the State Museum collections in Tucson, and Cochise County did not get to keep those fossils. A few years after that, somebody was farming along near Mosen Road, and they found fossils of a giant prehistoric mammoth. And it was considered an incredibly amazing specimen, the best specimen of any fossil mammoth ever found in the state of Arizona. And because there was no place to house them locally, they ended up in the museum collections in Tucson. A few years after that, more mammoth bones were found, and then in the 1940s, the Laner site was explored, where they found something like 9 mammoths and fossil bison and fossil horses, fossil camels, all of this amazing stuff.
Where was this at?
At the Laner site, near Palominas.
Oh, thanks.
And then a few years after that, more fossils were found, and then more fossils were found, more fossils were found. But because there was no place to house them locally, we lost out on that part of our history. So those fossils were collected by the State Museum, and they ended up not being available in Cochise County. And this went on, guys, for 100 years. 100 years of fossils in this area going to support museums in other areas. So something really, really cool happened in the 1970s. Fossils of a giant prehistoric armadillo were discovered in St. David, Arizona. And those fossils were so well preserved that they were obtained by the Smithsonian, and they were taken to Washington, D.C. They are considered the finest fossil specimens of a glyptodont, giant prehistoric armadillo, ever found. And they're housed at the Smithsonian, but they come from St. David, Arizona. So we have this incredibly rich history. So Dwayne, if you wouldn't mind going to the back, I'm just gonna show you some really cool fossils, just so you understand what has been found here in Cochise County. What we have here is just a tiny, tiny portion. But can we go ahead and pull that up so that you can see it? And can anybody possibly name that fossil?
Are we gonna get our fossils back?
I don't know. I don't know, that's a good question.
Oh, okay.
There we go, now we got it.
Let there be light. Josh, unplug the cord.
Anybody know what that is?
I don't know what it is, but I have a question for
Okay.
you. Are you familiar with the site where the hunting party, they have the hunting party identified where the area was and where they harvested a mammoth because it's a mud pit?
Which site are you talking
It's
about?
gotta
That's
be,
really
it's off
good.
of Charleston
That's
Road, I
neat.
think.
So there
Between, I'm sorry,
are a dozen sites just off of Charleston Road.
okay.
Like, and we're not talking about one site or two sites or three sites. There's a large number of sites.
Okay. So that's a rich area.
Really a rich area.
Was that all muddy?
It
Was that a
definitely
mud
was
pit?
mud.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay, so what this is a mammoth tooth. And this is definitely on the larger end of the spectrum, but this was definitely a male mammoth, and that tooth was found on the San Pedro River. Okay, let's go to the next one there. And that is part of a fossil bison jaw. And I found that in the double adobe area here in Cochise County. And people will say to me, I've actually had several people say to me, well, there were never fossil bison here in Cochise County. And I'm like, are you aware of the Buffalo Soldiers who worked on Fort Huachuca and why they were called Buffalo Soldiers?
Because their hair looked like buffaloes.
That's right. And if the Native American people had not seen a buffalo, where would we be? We would not be calling them Buffalo Soldiers. So there's a really good example of people who think that because today we don't have these animals here, well, we never had those animals here, and that is completely wrong. Okay, I get a little straightened after a while, so I apologize. Okay, let's go to the third one. And it doesn't look like much, but it's really, really amazing. It is really, really cool. Can you hold it up?
Oh.
Who here knows what that is?
Higher.
Who here knows
I'll
what
walk
that
around
is?
and hit it when somebody guesses it.
Oh.
Okay.
It's like a thunder egg.
Did you guess it?
No, it's not a thunder.
I don't know.
Anybody know?
didn't see what it was.
It is actually. What's going on here? That is actually a fossil shark vertebra.
Oh.
Wow.
Well.
Here?
Yep, fossil shark vertebra from the Whetstone Mountains right over there. Wait, over there.
Yeah.
Whetstone
There you go.
Mountains. Yes,
There you
yes.
go.
And the thing is, you could find marine fossils in this area. We were underwater. We probably were underwater as many as 4 times, because we'll see a layer of marine fossils, and then we see a layer of basically nothing, and then we see another layer of fossils, and then we see nothing for a while, and then we see another layer, etc., etc. So people will say to me, well, we were always a desert. No, we definitely were not always a desert. Yeah.
I'm getting there. Isn't that
No,
cool?
definitely.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Mountains get carved somehow, huh?
Parts and just, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's just do the last one.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanna do the little trilobite there.
Trilobite?
Yep.
And it's funny because I knew about the St.
There
David thing
is
because I
a
used to work
nice
with
little
the curator
trilobite
of the
from
Dancing
the
Museum.
Whetstone Mountains. And so you can see, I literally collected that from Dry Canyon in the Whetstones. Just about 10 weeks ago or 12 weeks ago, somewhere around there.
I heard
When
the
was
How
the
far
last-
up were you? Were you past where they shoot?
Right in that area.
Right where they shoot?
Yep, right where they shoot out there. Yep.
When was the last time we were underwater here?
The last time that we were underwater would have been before the dinosaurs, because the dinosaurs that lived in this area lived on dry land. So that was before even the dinosaurs. Great question. But we did have a huge lake here, and it was called Lake Cochise. And Lake Cochise covered a good portion of the county in fresh water. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights, and then I'm gonna show you some really cool things.
Find your mouse.
Okay, so just very briefly about me, I'm a member of the National Center for Science Education, and I'm a founder of the museum. My master's degree is in learning and technology, and my Bachelor of Science is in information technology. I've worked for the University of Arizona, I've worked for Cochise College, I worked for Cochise College for 18 years. I've got 2 certificates in museum studies, one from Harvard X, one from Smithsonian X, and I've got a certificate in paleontology from the University of Alberta. But what I would say is the field work is so much more important than any of that. Because once you know this area and once you know where to look for fossils, you can find fossils really, really easily. You just have to know what to look for. Here is a picture of me at the Smithsonian in 2014. We have lots and lots of invertebrates here in Cochise County. So what is an invertebrate?
Lacking a vertebra.
A what?
Lacking a vertebra.
Yes, it's an animal that has no backbone. We have many invertebrates that have been found here. One thing that you'll commonly find are called brachiopods. You'll also find crinoids, corals, echinoid spines. You just have to know where to look. You can walk out in the desert and you can find this. You just have to know what to look for. You'll see these weird looking rocks and you'll say, hey, that's a weird looking rock. And some of them turn out to be fossils. You can especially find them in Bisbee and Tombstone, but you can find them almost anywhere.
So, when they're lithified, is it more like
It's not like a sandstone, it'd be more like a,
It might be limestone, it might be sandstone, it might be chalk occasionally, but it's definitely going to be mostly sedimentary rock.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
great question, absolutely. And then here we've got a picture of the timeline. And this is a timeline just showing various periods of time. So we are incredibly lucky in this area because we have fossils that date all the way back to the Cambrian period, but we also have fossils from the Pleistocene, which was the Ice Age, which ended just about 10,000 years ago. So we've got really, really recent stuff, and we've also got incredibly old stuff. All of that stuff can be found here, which is absolutely amazing. Many counties will only have, things from a few periods, but we've got stuff that dates back all that way, like super early. Fossils can be grouped into 4 main groups: microscopic life, plants, invertebrate animals, and vertebrate animals. And brachiopods and bivalves are commonly mistaken for each other. Who here, raise your hand, knows what a brachiopod is? Nobody. Okay, so a brachiopod, you'll see them in the fossil record all the time. Basically, they look like a bivalve. They look like a clam or a scallop, but they're actually considered the opposite of a scallop or a clam, because a scallop or a clam will have 2 parts of the shell that are basically the same size, whereas brachiopods will have one side of the shell that's large and one side of the shell that's small, or they might have one side of the shell that is round like a clam shell, and then the other side of the shell will be like a bat wing. The shells don't match. So at the museum, all the time, I will have people walk up to me and say, "Is this a clam?" And I'm like, "No, that's not a clam, it's a brachiopod. They're considered the opposite of bivalves." So they'll say, is it a scallop? No, it's the opposite. These are animals that don't match what we have today.
So they'd be 10,000 or older?
definitely 10,000 or older. Now there are some on the Wilcox Playa that are actually just scallops and clams and things like that, but most of them are brachiopods and they're much older. We also have some really cool stromatolites, and it just looks like rock with these weird little wave forms in them, so they're kind of cool. Here are some examples of marine fossils. These are trilobites. Who here knows trilobites? Oh, a few people. Oh, that's great. Okay, so trilobites are ancient marine animals that lived in the water. And what I tried to do here is show a variety of different kinds of trilobites. So there's little ones, medium-sized ones. Cochise County. Okay, so now we got to move on and talk about some later fossils. Cochise County is the site of at least 48 Pleistocene megafauna sites, the most of any Arizona county. So 48 sites are recognized by the University of Texas at El Paso. 48. That doesn't mean that there's only 48. It just means they recognize 48 of them. In addition to the 48 Ice Age sites, we are the site of Sonorosaurus, Tanatosaurus, a unnamed dromaeosaurid, and two very fragmentary finds that are made in Arizona. They've been made here in this part of Arizona.
So it kind of means like the before the continents divided, it looks like we were one mass
Yeah.
at one time.
We definitely were. When fossils are discovered, unfortunately, we don't get to keep them. Because there has historically never been a place to hold them here. We're hoping to change that culture of what really is appropriation. So who here has heard of the dispute between Greece and the British Museum? So what do you know about that dispute?
Well, they're still debating whether to give them back their Elgin marbles.
Right, right. And so what has happened is Greece had a bunch of antiquities, and Great Britain went over and gathered those antiquities and took them back to the United Kingdom, and they've been in the United Kingdom now for hundreds of years, and Greece would like them back. That process is called repatriation. We'd like to eventually repatriate some of the fossils that are currently housed outside of Cochise County. We'd like to get some of them back. If we could get 1% of them back, we would have an absolutely amazing museum. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but here is the history talking about the fossils and how they keep leaving our area. We have lost so much of our natural history. We've lost so much of our cultural heritage because it ends up going to other areas and supporting other areas. We would like to bring some of it back. Now, obviously, we'll never be able to bring most of it back, but even 1%, if we could even get 1% back, we would have world-class museums, and it would help the economy, it would help the tourism aspect here, it would really drive traffic here, but right now, very little that was here is still here. This is page after page talking about what was here. And unfortunately, many of the fossils that were collected later became lost. And this is really, really frustrating. We had an amazing fossil specimen that was found here. A guy named Ron Hyde found a dinosaur skeleton in the Huachuca Mountains in 1997. And he took the fossils up to Tucson. He unfortunately passed in 2002. When we were working on creating the museum, I made many inquiries to see if we could get those specimens, or even a cast of those specimens, into the museum. And what I was told was, nobody knows where those fossils are now. We have absolutely no idea.
Oh.
Yeah, somebody knows.
Somebody knows, that's right. So what we're trying to do is see if we can preserve some of the things that ended up lost.
Hmm.
Oh, I need to go back to this slide. Two other undocumented records of vertebrate fossils from the Cretaceous of southern Arizona are a Dromaeosaurid and Tenontosaurus from lower Cretaceous strata in the Huachuca Mountains, and a Stegosaur from the lower Cretaceous Sand Wells Formation near Sells, southwest of Tucson. To our knowledge, these specimens are either lost or not reposited in any museum, so we cannot comment further on them. That is a direct quote from Spencer Lucas.
Don't museums keep like a catalog of everything they?
They're supposed to. Yeah,
So
they're supposed to.
Why would they not know where these are? Is it too far back?
No, it's from 97.
Oh, that's
So-
so strange.
It is very strange.
Well, from what I understand, is some of these get put aside and they don't want, the museums do not want it put out on display. Because they want to keep them. Now, I've heard this several times on the History Channel, where they say things are lost, and things are lost. But when something happens to a museum, and let's say, God forbid, it burns down, they find things that were not supposed to be there.
Stuff happens.
Shock.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to go back to what was here. So this is really cool. So this is a depiction of Ice Age Arizona. You will notice there's no ice and snow. This area was fairly warm. The University of Arizona did a study and they found that this area was, according to their core samples, it was around 47 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was cold, but it wasn't icy. And as a result, the large megafauna, the mammoths and the mastodons and the stegomastodons and the gomphotheres and the giant beavers and the giant sloths and all of these other animals were probably coming into this area to try to find warmer weather, to try to find food, and they were probably migrating into Mexico and then migrating back into what is now the United States, and they were coming back into this area, and eventually Native American people saw this and they realized, oh, if we can kill one of these giant animals, we can survive for weeks on this food. And so that is what they were doing, is they were targeting the largest animals, and that is where those Clovis points come in. So what are the Clovis points?
Arrowheads.
What?
The spear points.
Spear points, yes, they're spear points. And we find them in association when at least some of the mammoth fossils and giant bison fossils are found. We find these spearheads. Now, I'm just going to talk very briefly about what we have. At the museum, we have some minerals, some skeletons, life in the water, animals of the desert, a little bit of astronomy and archaeology, a little bit about hummingbirds. But the majority of our exhibits are about the fossils. So there is a fossil bison jaw that I found in the Double Adobe area. Fossil horse teeth.
So the horses were here before the Spanish?
Yeah, because the Spanish introduced the horses in the 1500s.
They reintroduced?
They reintroduced the
I
horse
see.
in the
Okay, they went
1500s.
extinct and then they brought it back. Gotcha.
Yep, that's right. Here is an Oreodont skull. They're pig-like animals. They're actually the ancestor of today's javelina. Mammoths have been found all over the place. I'm just going to do this really, really quickly. Mammoths have been found in Cascabel, Benson, St. David, Tombstone in 2 localities, several on Fort Huachuca and in Sierra Vista. They've been found in Wilcox on the Dry Lake. They've been found in the Charleston area near the Charleston Bridge. They have been found at 12 sites in the Double Adobe area and along Whitewater Draw. They've been found in Douglas, Purtleville, Paul Spur. They've been found in Bowie, San Simon. They've been found in Mescal. They were all over the place.
What's striking about that, of course, is an animal that size would eat an enormous amount of food.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the way things look then and now is very, very different.
Very different, absolutely. Here are some partial fossil mammoth teeth that I've collected over the years. And here they are side by side. You can see the mastodon, the mammoth, and the savanna elephant in comparison with one another. And then there is Stegomastodon, which also lived in this area. Anancus bensonensis, which is a gomphotherium, and it's named for Benson, Arizona. Did you guys know that? No, nobody's aware of that because we never had a natural history museum here. Hemiakenia, which is a fossil llama. So today, all wild species of llama live in South America, but there also used to be North American species, and Hemiakenia, little half-neck, was one of them. Camelops is one of many North American camels, and the museum has 23 bones that belong to Camelops. I found those myself. I'm very proud of those. Fossil javelina. Fossil horse. And the ancestral horse probably had stripes. The ground sloth, found in Karshner Caverns.
In the cave.
In the cave, yes. Bison anticus, which was about 1/3 larger than today's bison, with a huge ridge on its back. Glyptodonts, mostly in Graham County, but also in the Curtis Flats area near Benson. The short-faced bear, the dire wolf, the saber-toothed cat, and an animal even worse than the saber-toothed cat called Xenosmilus. It was even larger than Smilodon. We also have a few dinosaurs in our collection, and these are a mixture of local fossils and some international fossils just for the wow factor. And we also have a really beautiful collection. The museum holds more than 50 years of the collection of the Huachuca Gem and Mineral Club, including many documents, gems and minerals, and photographs of the Mineral Society founded more than 50 years ago. Although we have many minerals, we are always looking for more, and donations and loans are always welcome. Any questions?
I have a question. Where do them javelinas come from?
The javelina their ancestors are called Oreodonts, and they were pig-like animals, and they lived a long time ago, and they died out about 2 million years ago, leaving just a few species of javelinas today.
In my butt. Not where I live.
Other comments or questions or?
It seems that Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Where are you located?
We are located at the mall in Sierra Vista.
Oh.
If you go to the mall, we're just about 5 stores down from Jen and Matt's store. So if you know where the Lavender Butterfly is, we're just up that way between them and Dillard's. We are open Thursdays through Sundays, and we're open usually 11 to 5. On Sundays, we're open from 12 to 4. Great question. Other questions or comments?
What I remember from my archaeological training in California was that there was a land bridge coming through Alaska that, they theorized that Native Americans came
Yeah.
down that way. Now, the ones you're talking about, hunting the mastodons, were they coming up from, say, South America?
No, they came over the Bering Strait from Asia. And if I go
Okay,
back
so
a
it's
few
the same
slides-
period I'm referring to then.
Yes.
Okay.
This slide here, you can
Right.
see them coming over,
Right.
coming into North America. And here is a really, really interesting thing about our local mammoths. There were still mammoths here after the Ice Age. And in fact, a couple of skeletons have been radiocarbon dated to about 9,000 to 8,000 years ago, which is after the Ice Age. And in fact, the last mammoths around died on Wrangel Island in Alaska, literally just 4,000 years ago. 4,000 years ago is 2000 BC. If the ancient Egyptians had been able to sail to Wrangel Island in Alaska, they would have seen living mammoths. So we think of mammoths as prehistoric animals, and they were, but they were also early historic animals. They were around when history was being recorded. I find that mind-blowing,
It
personally.
is, that's pretty tricky.
Other
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah, I was watching, I think this was several years ago, I was like the Discovery Channel or something. If you go down to Molson's Road where there's that bison and mammoth kill,
Yeah,
there's a wash, if you go down and up the wash, if you walk along the wash heading east, you'll see about a real narrow strip, and it's a different color than the other above and below it.
yeah.
And that is from, they say about 12,000 years ago, where a comet hit. I mean, it was a fairly significant hit. And as I understand it, everything below that, and there's little diamonds, that's how they know, from outer space. I mean, you could get 1,000 of them, put them on the head of a pin. But, everything below that line is where you find the Clovis heads,
Yeah.
the spearheads,
Yeah.
and a lot of the bones and fossils and things like that. But much above it, it was plain to be, it was the dead zone. Like, there's not much above there for the 12,000 years, because that comet came down and wiped out a lot of the flora and fauna
That could be.
in this area.
Could be. Interesting. Are other questions or comments?
So being into the, prehistoric and researching and all of this, what do you think about our today's scientists that are cloning, say, like these dire wolves and stuff like that?
So we had a role to play in the deaths of some of these animals. For example, the Tasmanian tiger. We killed that animal. We made that animal extinct. In Australia, there's an animal called the Tasmanian tiger or Tasmanian wolf. It's not really a wolf, it's not really a tiger, but that animal was around until the 1930s. There is literally film footage of this animal, and we killed off that animal. So what that company that's called Colossal Biosciences, one of the goals is to bring back the Tasmanian tiger, and they're gonna use cloning techniques to see if they can bring that animal back. We absolutely, probably should do that, in my opinion. That is an animal we killed off. The Australian government introduced a bounty to kill off these animals because they thought they were eating sheep. And they might have eaten some sheep, but they literally made this animal extinct. In the 1600s, we killed an animal called the dodo, which lived on an island called Mauritius. We killed off that animal, and it only took about 40 years for that animal to be from one of the most populated animals on that island to being completely extinct. So in the case of those two animals there, we 100% caused those animals to be extinct. So I feel like with those particular animals, it makes sense if we can, quote unquote, play God and bring them back. All we're really doing is undoing what we did. In the case of some of these prehistoric animals, there is evidence that we helped make this animal extinct. I've got no problem with that. Let's not bring back any dinosaurs, because the dinosaur situation is way different. We had absolutely nothing to do with their extinction. So I don't have a problem with bringing back animals that we helped kill off, but we should never bring back those dinosaurs. If we do, we are foolish.
Well, about what time period was it that much of the human race was exiting the caves? What kind of time period was that?
About 2 million years ago.
Oh, is that long?
Well, up until even 30,000 years ago. If you go to central France, there's several areas where humans were still living in caves 30,000 years ago, and Native American people on this continent were living in caves as recently as 10,000 years ago. So it definitely varies, but we're talking about 2 million to very, very recently around 10,000 to 20,000 years ago, depending on the culture.
Thanks.
Yeah, and in fact, there's, if you go out to the Cortland area, there are some really, really cool areas where Native American people on hunting trips were still living seasonally. Apache people were living seasonally in these little side caves where it was sort of open to the elements. And they were literally living out there as late as the 1880s. Other questions or comments? No questions? No comments?
Oh, good job.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I got. If you
You were a good man to work for.